It began like any other live event: bright lights, polished stage, and an audience expecting a friendly political discussion. But when Denzel Washington took the mic, the tone shifted instantly. His words carried weight, the kind of weight that silences even the loudest crowd. He wasn't there to flatter. He was there to confront. "Mr. President," Denzel began, his voice steady but sharp, "you inspired a generation. But inspiration without action becomes disappointment. What happened to the promises?" A wave of murmurs spread through the audience. Cameras zoomed in. Obama leaned forward in his chair, his trademark composure flickering just slightly. The air in the studio grew thick with tension. No script, no teleprompter, just two icons standing face to face, unfiltered. Denzel continued, his tone unwavering. "You told us hope would change everything. But for many people out there, nothing's changed at all." The crowd gasped. Obama took a slow breath. His eyes locked onto Denzel's. For the first time that night, the former president didn't smile. He adjusted his mic, glanced at the audience, and said calmly, "Let's talk about what really happened." That single sentence shifted the atmosphere completely. Everyone leaned in, journalists, producers, even security at the back of the room. Something real was about to unfold. No politics. No pretense. Just truth. And America was watching. Obama leaned forward, elbows on his knees, that calm yet razor-edged composure that once ruled the Oval Office. The audience could sense it. This wasn't a politician preparing to dodge. It was a man ready to defend his legacy. "Denzel," he began slowly, his voice carrying that familiar rhythm of authority wrapped in empathy, "you're right. I told this country that hope could move mountains. But you can't move a mountain if half the people are busy trying to build walls around it." The crowd erupted into applause, but Denzel didn't flinch. He waited for the noise to die down, eyes steady on Obama. "So that's it?" he asked. "It's always someone else's fault. You had the power. The pen. The voice. You had a nation behind you." Obama smiled faintly, but there was steel behind it. "And I still do," he said. "But you can't lead a nation that only wants miracles. Change isn't a movie scene, Denzel. It's not scripted. It's fought for, one decision, one compromise, one sleepless night at a time." The room was silent again, cameras catching every flicker of expression. Denzel crossed his arms, pacing slightly. "That's easy to say from a stage," he said. "But there are people still waiting for that, yes we can, to mean something." Obama's eyes hardened. "You think I don't know that pain?" he said, voice tightening. "You think I didn't carry it every single day in that office?" He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You play heroes on screen. I had to face the villains in real life." The audience froze. Not one whisper. Not one movement. Two titans, one of art, one of politics, locked in a quiet storm. And then, a single reporter in the front row whispered, This isn't an interview. This is history." The lights felt hotter. The stakes, higher. And for the first time, Denzel's eyes softened, not out of surrender, but recognition. Because Obama's words weren't rehearsed. They were lived. The clip hit the internet before the lights even cooled. Within minutes, millions had watched Denzel Washington and Barack Obama face off in what viewers were calling the conversation America was too afraid to have. The studio audience had fallen into stunned silence that night, but online? The noise was deafening. Hashtags erupted across platforms, hashtag hope versus reality, hashtag Denzel versus Obama, hashtag truth in the room. Every outlet replayed that same moment. Denzel's sharp question, Obama's piercing reply, the flicker of hurt in both men's eyes. It wasn't politics anymore. It was raw humanity, broadcast live. In one viral clip, you could hear the breathless audience when Obama said, "You play heroes on screen. I had to face the villains in real life." The line spread like wildfire. Some called it arrogance. Others called it truth. Backstage, producers argued over whether they'd just aired the most powerful interview of the decade or the beginning of a cultural civil war. Denzel's publicist stared at her phone, the notifications endless: praise, outrage, admiration, threats. She turned to him. "You broke the internet," she whispered. Denzel sat in silence, elbows on his knees, still processing. He wasn't wrong, he murmured, almost to himself. But he wasn't right either. Across town, Obama sat in a quiet hotel room, scrolling through reactions. Some called him out of touch. Others hailed him as still the voice of reason. He sighed, setting the phone down. "People don't want nuance," he told his aide softly. "They want a winner." The aide hesitated. "Then what happens next?" Obama's gaze shifted toward the window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "Next," he said, "we remind them that truth isn't a competition." But America had already chosen sides. And for the first time, both men realized, this wasn't about politics anymore. It was about perception. By sunrise, the country had split clean down the middle. Talk shows, podcasts, and late-night pundits dissected every second of the exchange like it was a courtroom case. Headlines screamed contradictions: Denzel destroys Obama on accountability, sat right beside Obama schools Hollywood on reality. It wasn't a discussion anymore, it was a cultural battle. Networks played the footage on loop, each finding a villain that matched their audience. One side saw Denzel as the voice of the frustrated, unspoken millions. The other painted Obama as the last adult left in a room full of cynics. Hashtags became flags, clips became ammo. Truth, as always, became subjective. Denzel's team wanted him to clarify, to smooth things over. "You don't want to look like you attacked him," his agent warned. But Denzel shook his head. "I didn't attack him. I challenged him. There's a difference." Meanwhile, in a private roundtable, Obama's advisors debated whether to respond again. "If we stay silent," one aide argued, "he controls the narrative." Obama raised a hand. "And if we respond?" Silence. He leaned back. "Then we admit it got to us." But it had gotten to him. Alone that night, scrolling through headlines, Obama replayed Denzel's words in his head: "You had the power. The pen. The voice." The accusation lingered, not because it was unfair, but because it came from someone who'd once admired him. By the week's end, even world leaders were weighing in. Commentators abroad framed it as the American crisis of belief. But beneath the noise, something deeper stirred, a reckoning about leadership, art, and the limits of idealism. Neither man had planned to start a movement. Yet both had. The White House alumni dinner was supposed to be a quiet night of nostalgia, a reminder of smoother years. Instead, it turned into a post-mortem of Obama's exchange with Denzel. In a private room lined with portraits of past presidents, the clinking of glasses couldn't drown out the tension. A former advisor leaned in. "You know what they're saying, right? That you've lost touch, that Hollywood's got more moral fire than Washington ever did." Obama chuckled softly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hollywood can afford fire," he said. "In this town, fire gets you burned." Across town, Denzel sat in a dimly lit studio, preparing for a follow-up interview he hadn't wanted to do. The network wanted fireworks, he wanted clarity. His publicist placed a phone on the table: trending topics, reactions, think pieces. "They've turned it into a war," she said quietly. Denzel stared at the screen, his reflection flickering in the glow. "Then maybe it's time we talk about what we're really fighting for." When the cameras rolled, the host opened with a grin. "So, Denzel, do you regret what you said to President Obama?" Denzel paused, letting the silence do the work. "No," he said finally, "because what I said wasn't about him. It was about all of us. About what happens when we mistake charisma for change." The clip would go viral before sunrise. Again. Obama's phone buzzed just after midnight, a notification, another headline, another round of analysis. He scrolled through until one quote caught his eye: "Charisma isn't change." He exhaled slowly, eyes narrowing, the ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "He's not wrong," he whispered. For a moment, there was no rivalry. Just two men haunted by the same truth, that leadership, in any form, demanded more than applause. But outside their walls, the world wanted blood, not reflection. And the next act was already being written. By Monday morning, America was on fire, not with riots, but with opinions. Every network, every podcast, every trending page had turned the Denzel-Obama moment into a national obsession. Clips of their interviews were remixed, memed, recaptioned, and stripped of context until nobody remembered who said what first. Outside news studios, protesters and supporters clashed with words, not fists. One banner read, "Denzel said what we're all thinking." Another fired back with, "Respect the president." It wasn't just politics anymore, it was identity. Morning hosts tried to mediate. "This isn't about who's right," one pundit argued. "It's about the fact that Americans finally listened to something that wasn't scripted." But even that, ironically, became another script. Behind the scenes, both men watched the chaos unfold from opposite coasts. In Los Angeles, Denzel met with his longtime friend and director, who shook his head slowly. "You realize, right?" he said. "You didn't just challenge a politician. You challenged the myth of perfection." Denzel leaned back, arms crossed. Then maybe that myth needed breaking. In Washington, Obama's former staffers flooded his inbox with drafts of possible responses, speeches, interviews, controlled statements. He deleted each one. "I'm not reacting to a man," he told his communications aide. "I'm reacting to a moment. And the moment's bigger than both of us." But the storm wouldn't wait. Overnight, Fox ran a segment titled, "Hollywood's Hero Turns on His Idol." CNN countered with, "Obama faces the mirror of public discontent." Twitter was a battlefield of conviction and mockery. And in that noise, something rare began to happen. Ordinary people started talking. Not yelling, not tweeting, actually talking. In diners, classrooms, and barbershops, Americans found themselves asking the same question: can two truths exist at once? It was messy. It was uncomfortable. It was human. And it was far from over. The world wanted another showdown. Instead, they got silence, until a single photograph leaked. Denzel Washington and Barack Obama, sitting across from each other in a quiet Georgetown cafe. No cameras, no entourage, no stage lights. Just two men who had accidentally set the nation on fire, trying to douse the flames in private. They didn't shake hands right away. They just looked at each other, a long, measured stare that said more than 1,000 pundits ever could. Obama broke the silence first. "You caught me off guard," he said simply. "That doesn't happen often." Denzel nodded slowly. "That wasn't my goal. But maybe being off guard is how real conversations start." A faint smile crossed Obama's face. "Maybe. But it also makes enemies faster." They talked for over an hour, about the country, about fear, about how both of them had become symbols instead of people. At one point, Denzel leaned in. "Do you ever get tired of being the lesson everyone wants to learn from but no one wants to hear?" Obama laughed quietly. "Every day." Then, after a pause, "You too, huh?" The tension softened into mutual understanding. They weren't rivals. They were reflections, two men shaped by expectation, crushed by interpretation, and defined by moments they couldn't control. Before leaving, Denzel stood, buttoned his jacket, and said, "They'll twist this meeting, too." Obama shrugged. "Then let's give them something worth twisting." Outside, flashbulbs exploded as soon as they stepped out. But this time, neither flinched. Because sometimes, the loudest statement isn't confrontation, it's calm. By the next morning, that single blurry photo had ignited a second wildfire. Every outlet had a different story: secret peace talk between Obama and Denzel, damage control or master plan, the meeting they didn't want you to see. Cable news turned a quiet conversation into a national drama. Fox ran the clip with flashing headlines, "Hollywood bends the knee to Washington." CNN countered, "Obama and Denzel, a private talk on unity." Social media didn't care about context. They wanted fireworks, conspiracies, betrayal, a hero and a villain. Within hours, clips of the cafe were everywhere, zoomed-in photos, shaky phone videos, fabricated audio leaks. Commentators filled in the blanks with confident fiction. Sources say Obama apologized. Insiders claim Denzel offered to endorse him. An anonymous staffer reports tension. Denzel watched it all unfold from his living room. "We gave them silence," he muttered. "And they turned it into noise." His assistant sighed. "That's what they do. Silence scares them, they can't monetize it." Meanwhile, Obama's team scrambled to contain the speculation. One advisor suggested a press statement. "We can spin this into a message about reconciliation," she said. Obama shook his head. "Spin it? No. Let them argue. Maybe they'll listen to themselves for once." By afternoon, reporters camped outside Denzel's home and Obama's office. Microphones stretched across sidewalks. The air buzzed with the question everyone wanted answered: what did they talk about? But neither man spoke. No tweets. No press release. No rebuttal. And that silence, that deliberate, unbroken calm, became louder than any speech. Because sometimes, in a world addicted to reaction, restraint is the most radical act. Days passed. The headlines began to dull, but something unexpected started brewing beneath the noise, a shift. It wasn't about outrage anymore. It was reflection. Clips of Denzel's and Obama's interviews resurfaced, now stripped of bias. On TikTok, teachers used their exchange to teach civility in classrooms. On YouTube, pastors quoted their restraint as a sermon on discipline. And on the streets of Detroit, Atlanta, and Chicago, murals began appearing, two silhouettes sitting across a table, no words, no slogans. Just conversation. One night, Denzel received a message from a high school teacher in Baltimore. It read, "My students watched your interview and your silence afterward. They started listening to each other for the first time all year. You didn't preach. You modeled." He stared at the message for a long time before replying with just 3 words, "That's the point." In Washington, Obama attended a charity gala. A young activist approached him nervously. "Sir," she said, "I didn't agree with everything you said that night. But watching how you handled it, it made me want to do better." Obama smiled softly. Then it wasn't wasted. The tide turned. Late-night hosts stopped mocking and started analyzing. Journalists admitted, almost grudgingly, that the public's hunger for authenticity had outgrown their appetite for conflict. Suddenly, the story wasn't Obama versus Denzel. It was about how two men refuse to perform outrage in a world that profits from it. By the end of the week, a poll showed something extraordinary. For the first time in months, the majority of Americans said they felt hopeful. Not because someone won, but because, for once, two powerful figures chose grace over spectacle. It wasn't just a turning point in their narrative, it was one for the country. Months later, the frenzy was gone. News cycles had moved on to scandals and elections, but the clip of Denzel and Obama sitting across that cafe table still floated quietly across the internet, not viral, not forced, just alive. Denzel stood backstage before a charity gala, the crowd's low hum seeping through the curtains. He wasn't there to promote a film. He was there to speak about mentorship. As the spotlight found him, he paused, scanning the audience. "You know," he began, "people ask if I regret speaking that night. I don't. Because the truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that refuses to fade." Meanwhile, across the country, Obama was at a youth summit in Chicago. A student asked, "Do you ever wish that moment with Denzel hadn't happened?" He chuckled. "No. I think we needed it. We reminded people that disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect, that dignity is the highest form of power." Those clips, two separate events, two different tones, were spliced together by a small independent creator. The video went viral again, this time under a new title. Two Men. One Conversation. Endless Echo. It ended with their photo, the same one from the cafe, slowly fading to black. In that stillness, viewers felt something rare, clarity. No villains, no heroes, just human beings trying to bridge a gap that headlines kept widening. Weeks later, murals of the two appeared in schools and community centers, captioned with the same line, "Strength isn't volume. It's composure." And so, the story that began as a clash became a mirror, reflecting not just power and pride, but the courage to listen. Because in the end, it wasn't about who was right. It was about who stayed real. And both of them did. And that's the real lesson: power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just sits still, listens, and waits to be understood. Obama and Denzel didn't just make headlines, they made history. Not with noise, but with grace.